Thank you everyone for coming back and joining us for the afternoon session. Oops, sorry. So to start with to start off the afternoon session, we have Ms. Cecile Furman, Director of South Asia Regional Integration and Engagement in the World Bank, to talk about regional integration. You're giving the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I thought that starting the afternoon with the video might be a good way to get you back into the room and into the mood. So it's really a delight for me to be here. As you've seen illustrated in the video, a large part of what we do in this regional integration cooperation program is to facilitate dialogues, to bring people together around platforms where they can meet, they can exchange, they can learn from each other, they can build joint knowledge and joint research. So I think this forum really illustrates that, and that's why I'm so happy to be here. Just by way of background, if you're kind of wondering what my role is in all of this, through this program, and you saw that we have a number of donors who support us. One of our donors, which is the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, has been one of the key contributors, and it has been supporting the South Asian Network on Economic Modeling. And so I want to acknowledge their support and also the support of my program in helping you all come together. So we do, as I said, bring a lot of people together, researchers like you, young students or young economists in South Asia. We have a number of platforms. Some are very formal, where we're going to bring together power secretaries, for instance. We have a number of track 2 efforts also, and we bring together scientists. And why do we do that? Well, for a number of reasons. One is we know that South Asia is one of the least integrated regions of this world. There are a lot of barriers to integration and to cooperation. But what we also know is that when we bring like-minded people in a room together around a common goal or a common effort, that's where the energy and the creativity of this region is unleashed. So I'm sure you've been experiencing a lot of that this morning, and we'll do more in the afternoon. So I really wanted to make 2 points in my short intervention this afternoon. And the first is that the work you do in putting together research and evidence is so important for our agenda. So that's going to be my first point. And then my second point is that the work we do is very relevant to your agenda today, which is all about building resilience to shocks. And I think you saw a reference to that already in the short video. So on the first point, because South Asia has these large barriers to integration, a large part of our effort is about building a credible evidence base that can convince stakeholders that regional integration cooperation is good for development, it's good for growth, and it's good for resilience and inclusion. So some examples of that is in the area of transport connectivity. We know that trade is difficult. Trade facilitation at the border is very cumbersome. There is no motor vehicle agreement yet in place. So when we modeled all of this and we said, what would it take if that infamous BBIN MVA were finally to be put into implementation, if we had greater trade facilitation at the border? And the models show that the GDP of Bangladesh could increase by 17%, and India by almost 8%. On regional electricity trade, we also have a lot of evidence, and we're building more evidence that shows the high impact on the economic side, but also on the environmental side. If India and Bangladesh could import more hydropower from Nepal and Bhutan, we estimate that could reduce carbon emissions by 8 to 10% in the region. And then more recently, the work that Hans and his team have been doing on air quality, the recent report on striving for clean air demonstrates very clearly that of the 4 scenarios, the one where there is regional cooperation is the most viable. It's going to get us the better results, more efficient It's going to get them faster, and it's going to get them at a reduced cost. So the estimates are that it would be 45% less expensive if the 4 countries of the Indo-Gangetic Plain that share an airshed were to work together. So that's the kind of powerful evidence and research that we use in our dialogue, and we know that it's when we put these kinds of numbers on the table that we can actually get traction with policymakers. So that's my first point. The second point is then, what do we bring to your agenda today, which is about resilience and shocks? And there, my iPad is definitely in weekend mode. It's not wanting to respond. Here we go. So there, as the video indicated, we have enough evidence to know that when countries trade, when they work together in terms of greater integration, but also cooperation, they're going to get much better outcomes. So countries, when they come together, can exchange data, information, they can build knowledge resources, they can build joint solutions, they can pool resources and capabilities. And that makes for a stronger resilience and a stronger response to shocks. Conversely, if countries become more inwardly focused and more protectionist, over time, their growth and their inclusion ability to progress is going to be stalled. So that's why we work across the 3 pillars that are outlined here on the slide behind me. So it is about enabling more connectivity on trade and transport, also on digital connectivity. We're initiating some work right now on cross-border payments also to facilitate e-commerce and remittances. It is about building more resilience to climate change, and there we all know about the climate hotspots, the fact that half of the population of this region is vulnerable to some extreme shock. And a good example of cooperation there is on hydromet, where we bring the 8 countries of South Asia and Myanmar together in the South Asia Hydromet Forum. These are policymakers, these are scientists, they come together around building capabilities, pooling resources. Hydromet can be very expensive. So for some of the smaller countries like Bhutan and Nepal, being more plugged in and better supported by their larger neighbors, such as India, is absolutely essential. And that then entails more data sharing, more information sharing, and ultimately better systems, better forecasting, early warning systems that can save lives and livelihoods. So that's a very tangible example of building resilience together. And then in the third pillar, obviously, and the video illustrates it very well, greater resilience to shocks such as pandemic. We're pretty much out of COVID, but we know that with very, very high likelihood that all of us collectively in South Asia also will be hit by another pandemic in the coming years. So we are currently working also with helping to build some regional approaches to that. So that's where we come in, where we think that by working together, and it's often not all 8 countries, I should maybe just clarify that. We also know that this is a region where there are some political barriers, but we always work at a sub-regional level. We work where there's willingness to engage. We work where that economic win-win and social win-win is very apparent. And then in all of what we do, we work very closely to ensure that women are included, that they're empowered. There's a lot of evidence, including coming out of Hans's team, on the economic benefits of women in the labor force, women entrepreneurs, and women trading. So it's not just the moral thing to do, it's the right economic solution also for greater growth and greater resilience. So all this to just conclude, maybe with a little plug for this group. I missed the morning session. I won't be able to stay with you all afternoon, but I would encourage all of you, to the extent that your research agenda enables it, to think regionally, right? I think we tend to often look at problems locally or nationally, but I would challenge you all to think in your work, is there a regional dimension? Is there something that could facilitate growth and build greater resilience for the region if you put more data, more evidence, and more concrete examples on the table. So with that, I thank you all. And again, really happy to be here, and I wish you excellent proceedings and to continue this effort. And maybe I'll just conclude with one thought is, we, as I said, we do support a number of these networks, and sometimes we wonder, right? We tend to say, is this a good use of scarce development resources? Are we just paying for another talk shop? Are we just bringing together people around, a few nice sandwiches? And about a year and a half ago, I was in Pakistan speaking to one of the professors who's been very engaged in this, the South Asia Young Economists Network. And that network has been running since 2004, so it's had quite a long life. And he said, never underestimate the power of these networks. Never underestimate what can come out of this. You might not see the result today, you might not see it in 6 months or in a year, but it may come out 5 years, 10 years from now. A lot of these young researchers will be one day, high officials in their universities, they'll be in government, they'll be making decisions, and you are changing the hearts and the minds of people in the process. So that's what gives me so much joy and so much confidence in being with you today, and I'll be really looking to see how this network progresses going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.